Listeners, Howard and I spoke with the new law firm chair of a media and entertainment boutique in LA. We discussed his upbringing in a home surrounded by NBA Hall of Fame professional basketball players, how the media and entertainment business has changed over the years, and the events that led up to his new role as chair of the firm. Enjoy. So, welcome, Yakub, to the Future is Bright podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Chris and Howard. Appreciate the invitation. I'm really happy to be here.
So, Yakub, you are the new chair of MSK. You're based in LA. Honestly, I'd love to have you open with a little bit of your upbringing because you have an exciting family background. There's some dynamics that I know listeners would be curious to know as it relates probably to your life as a lawyer, a paralegal before that, and as a leader. So I'll let you kind of share and open up about that.
All right. Yeah. Well, I have a relatively famous father. He was an NBA basketball player. He was the captain and MVP of the first John Wooden UCLA basketball championship team in 1964. They went undefeated 30-0. He then went on to the 64 Tokyo Olympics and won a gold medal before playing 10 years in the NBA, beginning with the Los Angeles Lakers. So I had a very interesting, kind of fun upbringing in that. I went to a lot of basketball games, hobnobbed with a lot of professional athletes, many of whom are, went on to become famous Hall of Fame type players. And so it was kind of fun sitting around at a birthday celebration for myself with, NBA players there with little hats on, singing happy birthday. So it was kind of
Did the genes
different kind of upbringing.
Did the genes pass on?
I like to joke that it skipped a generation. So my sons did very well. They both played college basketball. My oldest was his name is Jacob, was a walk-on at Arizona, played on some really good teams. And my youngest son, Max, went to UC Irvine, where he led the team to their very first ever March Madness victory a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
Against Kansas State. And ironically, literally, I almost had the same stat line as my father had against Kansas State when he played them in 1964 in the semifinals of the NCAA tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was fun because I was at the game. It was in San Jose. And apparently, unbeknownst to me, at the firm, not only in the LA office, but also in our DC and New York offices, they literally shut down and turned the game on. And the whole firm watched the game on Channel 2, and I was getting text messages and emails the entire time.
So
and
fun.
When I came back the following week, it was like, everyone was still talking about the game and how exciting it was. That was really a special occasion for us.
That's amazing. Did you, were there things being raised by a professional sports player that made an impression on you in life?
Well, I mean, just saying the work ethic that goes into it, everyone thinks of it as just a glamorous kind of position, but, behind the scenes and behind the curtain, you see all the hard work that professional athletes put in, mainly physically, just to be in the kind of physical condition that they need to be to perform on a night in and night out basis. So that was something to see, and just kind of the discipline that, comes along with that kind of training regimen.
And Yakub, your mom was also kind of a cheerleader at UCLA, right? So I mean, the dinner table talk must have been fantastic. It's been wild.
Yeah, it was. It's almost like the high school sweetheart or college sweetheart story, right? The star basketball player, starts dating and ultimately marries the cheerleader. My mother was actually the first African American cheerleader in what ultimately became the Pac-12, so she kind of was groundbreaking in that sense. And there's a famous story about the finals game when they were playing and the cheerleaders were on a separate bus and they had some kind of difficulty getting to the game, and UCLA was losing in the game until the cheerleaders finally made it to the arena and came in, and then all of a sudden they went on this fantastic run to win the game and the championship for John Wooden's very first ring.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So what led you to consider the practice of law? I understood that you were a paralegal first, correct?
Yeah, so I went undergrad at Stanford, where I did try to play basketball. I didn't do it very successfully. I was on the team for a couple of years before I blew my knee out. And I had I was a senior and I had majored in public policy. It was a pretty new major at the time. And I was thinking about going to law school. I had taken the LSAT. I had gotten all of the uh, applications. And as I was about to fill them out, I just felt like I wanted to take a break from school. And so I just kind of decided I was going to pause for a year and do something else. I didn't know what it was going to be. And at the time, my father was coaching UCLA, and he was at an event, like a charity event, and he was seated at a table with a woman named Pat Benson, who's a former, now retired MSK partner, and she happened to also be a Stanford undergrad alum. And my mother and Pat started just talking, just kind of small talk, and that came up, and then that led to my mother saying, "Oh, well, my son is, about to graduate from Stanford." And Pat said, "Well, what does he want to do?" And my mother explained that I was thinking about law school, but wanted to take a break from school for a year, and was trying to figure out what to do for that year. And she said, "Well, he should come to my firm and be a paralegal." And so I did. And so I joined the firm in 1986 as a paralegal, did that for a year. Got to meet and work with a number of the lawyers at the firm then, and then went on to UCLA Law School, came back to the firm for 2 summers as a summer associate, and ultimately as a associate after I finished at law school in 1990, and was at the firm until for over 10 years, made partner, and then was recruited away to go to another firm, and did a few other things for a while, and then ended up coming back to the firm about 7 years ago.
Do you ever think about that, if mom didn't, say what she's, if that event didn't happen, would your career be totally different and we wouldn't even be speaking today? I mean, is it that tenuous?
That's probably true. Who knows what would have happened and that dinner not occurred and that conversation taking place. But that was really the thing that jump-started my relationship here with MSK, and it's been a wonderful relationship to this day.
Yeah, so much of luck and serendipity has a way to play in our lives. What made you make the leap from private practice to go in-house to NBCUniversal, and what about that journey at NBC that you bring back to private practice? Kind of curious.
Yeah, so I was at another firm called Robbins, Kaplan, Miller, and Cerisi at the time. I was the co-chair of the entertainment practice, and that firm, we represented talent and disputes against studios and networks and record labels. Here at MSK, we were on the other side, right? We represent the companies. And so I had the experience of being on kind of both sides of the table. And I was contacted by NBCUniversal, who had an opening in their litigation department for someone to oversee what they call their profit participation disputes. That's the Hollywood accounting cases. And so they thought I was uniquely positioned for that role, given that I had been kind of on both sides of the issues and had a lot of contacts on both sides of the table in town, just based upon my experience. And so I decided to take a chance and go in-house and do that for a number of years. And it was a great experience. I worked under a gentleman who unfortunately is now deceased, named Lickman, Jamie Lickman was his name. And he was just a great leader and someone that I really enjoyed working with and for. And it was a great experience. But then I thought, having been a partner in a law firm, it was a little bit of an adjustment being in-house and being kind of an employee for Comcast. And also when you're in-house in a legal function, you're kind of an expense, you're a cost, right? You're not a revenue generating part of that business. Whereas when you're a partner in a law firm, you are a revenue generator. And I like being a revenue generator a little bit more than being kind of a line item on the expense sheet. Although the work was interesting and the people were great there. And so I decided I wanted to get back into private practice. So I picked up the phone and called the then managing partner at MSK and said, "Hey, would you be interested in having me come back to the firm?" And, they welcomed me back with open arms. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to come back where it all started. I mean, when I was during my first stint at MSK, I got married to my wife, Monique. A number of the lawyers came to our wedding. My 2 sons were born. My first one was born literally on the weekend in the middle of a trial that I was conducting at the time. And I remember calling the partner and saying on a Sunday morning and saying, "You better come get my litigation stuff because my wife's water just broke and we're about to head to the hospital please apologize to the judge that I won't make it in on Monday, but I promise I'll be back on Tuesday. And so that's what happened. And so, a lot of great memories here. And so I was really thrilled to have the opportunity to come back kind of where it all began.
And how agonizing was that decision to kind of go in-house for the first time? I mean, that's a big decision that lawyers make. I mean, that's not undertaken lightly. That's a big career transformation for many people.
Yeah, it was something that I struggled with in trying to make the decision. I was trying to balance, maintaining my practice that I had at the time versus trying something new and going in-house and kind of learning a different aspect of being a lawyer, right? Being the in-house counselor as opposed to the outside hired gun. And I thought it was a great experience for me because I learned a lot from my time as an in-house lawyer. I learned what clients expect, what makes their lives easier, and that has really helped me as I've come back into private practice in delivering the legal services in a really user-friendly manner for the clients and understanding the pressures and the strains that they're under, having been in-house myself. They're more interested in an answer to a question as opposed to a 20-page, legal memo analyzing all the cases going back to, the beginning of the Copyright Act or something like that. So.
Yeah. So, and just kind of touching on that for a moment, the answer to the question. So, were you put in a place where you're working with outside counsel and you had the realization, don't give me a dissertation, just tell me what to do or tell me your opinion? Is that kind of what you're mentioning, or you're thinking that outside counsel, that you have this new perspective that would really help support clients?
Yes, exactly. That's they really need to know the answer. They want to know the why, but they want to know the what first, right? So what is the answer? And then you can explain why you came to the conclusion that you came to. So like I tell younger lawyers that when communicating with clients, always at the beginning of the email or the memo, provide the answer. Short, concise, plain language. And then you can discuss the legal ramifications or underpinnings of that later on. But you need to start off with the headline of what answering the specific question that the client asked, if possible.
Yeah. And so you were at NBC for 5 years, I believe.
Yeah, 4 years.
4 years. Okay. And then you came back to MSK. Was that by your volition? Were they the outside counsel knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, come back," or you felt that you served your time at NBC and you're ready to practice law again?
Yeah, it was really my own volition. I, like I said, I really enjoyed the work at NBCUniversal, and the people there were great. It was a little bit narrower of a role than I had been used to in private practice, right? In private practice, I have all kinds of different kinds of cases for different types of clients. And there, I was working for one client, NBCUniversal. And again, I was doing primarily these Hollywood accounting type matters, which were, so that's pretty, focused niche practice. And, I wanted to do something a little bit broader again, because I found that to be a little bit more stimulating for me and intellectually challenging. And so that's why I decided to kind of jump back into private practice. And I wanted to do it before too much time had passed and I kind of lost the ability and connections that I had, when I was at my prior law firm. And so that's what motivated me to make the decision.
Yeah, yeah. And when did it begin for you and Greg to start talking about leadership and succession? Because you had shared with us the other day that this was a plan. There was some plans taking place here. So curious to hear.
Yeah, so it actually started almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
We had our firm retreat. I guess that would have been 2023, and we're rolling out a strategic plan, and part of that strategic plan was kind of restructuring the governance of the firm and going to a chair, vice chair structure. Prior to that, we had kind of like co-managing partners, and we decided to change that. And so, he and I were, named the chair or going to be running as chair and vice chair. And at that time, there were some rumblings in Hollywood about a woman named Carol Lombardini, who was the head of the AMPTP, getting close to retirement, and speculation about who her replacement might be. And Greg Hazzard, our former chair, was always at the top of that list based upon his background. And so we knew that was going to be a possibility. We then, though, were able to kind of have a sigh of relief when Carol decided to remain in her position for another year. So then Greg and I ran and we became chair and vice chair. But then, it was announced last summer that she was going to be retiring within about a year. And late last year, Greg advised me that he had been contacted by the search committee that was conducting the search to fill her position. And I knew right away when he told me that we better start doing some succession planning, because I was certain he was going to get the position because he was the perfect candidate for it. And so, I started working with our COO, Doug Gold, and, kind of putting together a succession plan, which obviously first step was I would move from the vice chair to the chair position. Then the next question was who would be the vice chair. And so we started going through kind of the roster of the partners and trying to identify who that might be. And I landed on Andrew Spitzer, our current vice chair, as being the appropriate person, given kind of his history with the firm. He's born and raised at MSK, and he was kind of in the right place in his career for it. And so I asked Andrew about it, and he graciously agreed. And then I went about the process of, while we're democratic and all these things are, based upon a general election, we try to do things by consensus. And in order to get that consensus, I started, going to first the governing board members, kind of socializing me and Andrew as the team. And then, and once I did that and kind of had their buy-in, went to talk to a number of the partners outside of the governing board just to let them know what we were thinking. And then ultimately, we were able, fortunately, to time all of the announcements with the AMPTP so that we had enough time after Greg had formally accepted to conduct our partnership vote, have Andrew and I elected, and then be able to seamlessly announce after Greg announced that he was leaving that we had a new leadership in place at the firm. We didn't kind of skip a beat. And, one of the few times in life where the timing worked out perfectly.
And Yakub, how long is your term for?
They're 2-year terms. We started, this term ends in December, and then we'll have another election in January for another 2 terms, because I was 15 months into the term when the transition occurred with Greg's departure and me stepping into his role. So
part of the role, did you have to kind of produce a manifesto and run on a certain platform to be elected to the role?
Not really. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we had gone through a strategic planning process a couple of years ago and have a strategic plan that we are in the process of executing. And so really my desire and intent is just to continue to execute on that strategic plan that we've kind of laid out and that Greg and I had started to implement before his departure.
So if I might just chime in, what you just described, Yakub, is incredibly smooth. Like that transition, how fortunate you guys were with timing for Greg and the long run he's had, and then you being able to step in. I mean, all of that. I mean, guys probably take credit for it, but at the same time, it's just amazing.
And you're still smiling.
Right. That's true. It's true. There's usually a fair amount of politics. You're probably not the only one trying to get the role, or just those dynamics can be pretty tumultuous. And it sounded like an amazing transition, like a well done succession planning.
Well-oiled machine. Absolutely.
Yeah. We tried, like I said, we were fortunate that the AMPTP kind of played ball with us on the timing. It was very gracious of them.
It's amazing. Again, that's amazing. Forgive me, Howard. I don't know if you're about to jump in about succession strategic planning. You said a buzzword for Howard and I. Our ears always perk when we hear strategic planning. So would love to hear from you, Yakub, kind of any sort of bullets or high level, what you guys are thinking or you're allowed to share with us on strategic planning. What does that look like? And if I may just say, your firm, is it 130, 125 attorneys at this moment?
Yeah, a little over 130 now.
130, okay.
Yes. And so part of our strategic, we had a number of themes that we identified in the strategic plan. I'll just share a couple of them with you. One was, growth. We would like to grow kind of organically, and we identified kind of where we'd like to grow, and we decided we wanted to kind of lean into where we're already strong, right? And so we have a very robust labor and employment practice, very heavy entertainment focused. You'll also have very strong intellectual property, entertainment related litigation practice. And so those were two among some other areas where we decided that we wanted to kind of focus our energy and resources on trying to expand our ranks.
And you said growth, and you said organic. Are you talking about, um, you know, getting inexperienced law associates to come from law school and groom them and grow organically in that way? Or are you talking more somehow around lateral?
It's really more around laterals
Lateral.
that,
Okay.
yeah, that fit into our strategic plan and our kind of lanes of growth that we've identified. And so,
Okay.
like I mentioned, the two areas we've been fortunate enough in the last few months to bring in 6 lawyers, 3 on the East Coast offices in our labor and employment practice, again, leaning into the strength that we have there and expanding our bench. And then also 3 lawyers in our intellectual property entertainment litigation practice that we brought over from Greenberg Glusker, again, leaning into and expanding the bench in another area that we're already strong and known for. And so our hope is to kind of, to the extent possible, kind of corner the market in some of these areas by expanding and increasing our depth in places that we're already very strong.
And what's happening with the market? Is the market expanding, or the divisions between obviously licensing and gaming and entertainment, it's all media, it's all becoming blurry, as well. I'm not an expert in that area, but it seems to be changing as we speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, what used to be considered entertainment, right, was film, TV, and music. But now when you think about an entertainment type practice, it's a bit broader. It includes video gaming. I mean, the video game industry is, multiple times bigger than the movie business, right? And it's basically become a new form of entertainment with a lot of entertainment type content. You've got graphic artists creating stuff for the games. They use a lot of music. They use a lot of name and likenesses of celebrities and other famous people. And so it's become a very large part of our practice. In fact, I think that we have probably the preeminent video game practice in the country, if not the world, through some of the partners that do that work. And it really does dovetail nicely with kind of the traditional media entertainment work that we've done historically.
While we're talking about the industry that you're so focused on, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Yakub, on so you've been at this for 40 years, and you've been with the firm, I mean, from the very beginning, not of the firm, but with your career in this sense. What have you seen over this period of time as it relates to media entertainment and how it continues to evolve? Like, we have streaming now, video gaming takes on a new form, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I've, seen a number of disruptions in the industry throughout the 40 years I've been practicing, starting on the music side with Napster and the whole digital downloading of music. Our firm was on the forefront of those cases, representing the Recording Industry Association and all the record labels and challenging the Napster business model and ultimately bringing that down. So I've seen that disruption. And interestingly, as we all know now today, that really changed the way people consume music. Right now, instead of going to the brick and mortar record stores, everyone's got the music on their phones or other devices. That was very interesting. And then more recently, as you just mentioned, the whole streaming phenomenon and the disruption in the film and TV world, that's been very interesting as well. I mean, everyone thought 4 or 5 years ago when Netflix was really coming on strong that, the future of consuming television, the movies was all going to be via streaming. It was all going to be advertised free. It was all going to be on demand. And that, traditional terrestrial television was going to go away and the whole ad supported model would be gone forever. And then now you kind of fast forward to where we are today. And what are the streamers doing? They're now having advertisements on their streaming platforms. And what else are they doing? They're not releasing every episode of the series on the same day. They're now doing one a week. It's very similar to when I used to watch TV at home with ads and had to wait a week for the next episode of whatever show I was watching. And so it's kind of like what's old is new and what's new is old. It's kind of come full circle, which is very interesting to see.
And do you think there's any trends that are here to stay? So, one that I'm familiar with, having lived in Kansas City, is AMC theaters. So, that whole theater business has, I mean, it's on a lifeline right now. They're barely able to hold on. Some of the biggest names have bankrupt. AMC may be only around only because of the meme crave during 2020, where that their stock really popped, and it kind of helped rescue them financially. But um, I mean, do you see that industry surviving or coming back around?
I don't know that it's going to bounce back to where it was kind of pre-pandemic. I think that's kind of was a real turning point, right, where people were forced to stay home and couldn't go to theaters. And I don't know that it's going to rebound to where how it was, when I was growing up. But I don't think it's going to go away completely. I think that there's still going to be a need and a demand for going to the theater and seeing certain kind of movies on the big screen. So I don't think it's going to go away completely.
And Yakub, if we go to the other end of the extreme here, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts about the AI that's coming on stream, about how that could potentially change the industry. Whether that's bad or good, I don't know, but certainly that's going to be a force for the future work of the firm.
Yeah, well, the AI world is definitely a brave new one, as they would say. Still a lot of unknowns as to exactly how that can impact the industry. I know that the guilds obviously are very focused on that issue, as we saw in the last round of the negotiations between them and the studios. Exactly how that shakes out and what shape it takes at the end of the day, it's unclear to me, but it's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch to see how the industry navigates that issue. On the one hand, it can be great cost savings and create great efficiencies. On the other hand, it could deprive people from having as much work that they had traditionally, because they can be replaced by an AI image. And I know that that's something that's very a hot topic in the industry today.
Are you optimistic about the future of AI and the impact on the industry?
I am. I think it'll take a while to get there, but as we've seen in all these other disruptions, whether it's the Napsters of the world or the streaming phenomenon, at the end of the day, it'll end up shaking out, and I think and become beneficial for all the parties involved, and including the consumers.
So let me kick off with another question about kind of with your amazing background, Yakub, about high performing teams, about the future growth of the firm. How do you see that happening? And because it's part of your DNA, being at the firm, in and around 40 years, but that whole high performing, building a team, I would love to hear your thoughts about that going forward in the future direction of the firm.
Okay, well, it's interesting because that kind of dovetails with another pillar of our strategic plan, which is reconnect, right? And that's really about building the team, building the culture, rebuilding the culture of the firm. Not that we've lost it, but it's been disrupted a little bit because of COVID and the work from home environment or hybrid environment that we now live in. And so we're really making a concerted effort to kind of reconnect the people within the firm by doing different things, different events, different kind of structures. We've put together what we call highs, which are groups that of partners, associates, staff, people, and there's a leader. And the whole idea is that those hives are going to get together and do things, social things, whether it's going to Top Golf or our hive. We did like a ceramic class where we, I made an ashtray or a couple of coasters. So we're trying to do those things, and doing that in connection or at the same time is trying to organically grow the firm. We're really looking at people that fit within our culture. And so, I had a situation recently where there was a potential partner candidate that we were talking to, and we really want to have consensus when we're bringing someone in like that. And not that any one partner has a veto, but unless there's a real strong consensus that a person fits, not just with respect to their business or practice, but also with the firm culturally, then we don't want to move forward, because our culture is too important to us to jeopardize just for bring it over to someone who we think has a lot of business or could help our practice, but it does not fit with the rest of the folks here at the firm.
So if the culture is so incredibly important and unique to the firm, does that put a limit on the potential growth of the firm? Because to maintain that culture that you talked about, is that going to be a challenge going forward?
Well, it's a balancing act, right? So we want to grow, but we also want to maintain the culture that we have here at the firm that everyone loves. And so, like an example I just gave, we will look at different situations, groups of lawyers or what have you. But if we don't think that they're a good cultural fit, then we'd rather maintain the culture than just grow for growth's sake.
Understood.
Absolutely. Yakub, thank you so much for your time today. I know you've got a very busy schedule. I'm glad this worked. How can people find you, contact you, follow you on social media?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn, and my name's a little unique, so I'm pretty easy to find. It's Yakub and Hazzard with 2 Z's, right? Double trouble. So you can find me there on LinkedIn. And, I'm pretty active on it. And so if anyone reaches out to me via that platform, I'm pretty good at responding and getting back to them. So that's probably the easiest way to find me.
Excellent. Well, Yakub, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
It's great having you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.